Hi, I'm Yannick from Vasha Photography, and in this video I'll show you how to do color grading using solid color adjustment layers in Photoshop so that we can go from this to this and also from this to this. So let's get started. So before we do the actual color grading, in this video I'll be showing you the three different blending modes. For the solid colors would be the normal, the color, and the soft light. And for the masking, I'll be using three different methods: Luminosity Mask, Apply Image, and Blend If. So stay till the end of the video to show all the different ways to do the color grading. Okay, so let me go to my first image here. I'm going to make this group invisible and then collapse it so that we have for the reference later on. And there are many ways to do color grading in Photoshop. The solid color adjustment layers is just one way to do it. As with anything in Photoshop, there are many different ways to accomplish the same task, and the same applies to color grading. This is just one way to do it that we actually like doing, and it gives us a good control over our photos. So the first step in doing color grading using the solid color adjustment layers is to create a solid color adjustment layer. So let's go this. To create an adjustment layer, you have to go to the icon here for the adjustment layers and select the top one, which is the solid color. And we're going to select like a blue color for now, just to quickly do it. Now, with the solid color adjustment layer at 100% opacity, obviously you will not see anything that is lying below this, because we are just having a solid color at 100% opacity. So to have any visibility, you can either reduce the opacity of that layer or change the blending mode. So for example, we can do the color and also reduce the opacity further, or we can do the soft light and also reduce the opacity. The problem here, though, is that we apply this blue color to the whole image. So even when we reduce the opacity, maybe let's say to 30%, the blue color is applied across the whole image. So as I mentioned before, I'll show you three different methods: Luminosity Mask, Apply Image, and Blend If, to show you how to control where the blue color is applied to the image, whether it's applied to the highlights, the shadows, or the midtones. So the first one, as I mentioned, is the Luminosity Mask, and this will give you a control, but not a full control, how to do it. So this is just the first way to do it. So in order to do it, we have to do two things to prepare for it. We have to make this layer invisible, and then remove this layer mask. We're just going to drag it to the trash can here, and we can say yes, we don't really need it. Now the next step is to go to the channels panel, and if you don't see the channels panel in Photoshop, go to Windows and then make sure the channel is clicked. While pressing Control, click on the RGB channel. And what this does is selects all the tones 50% bright or more. So anything, the brighter midtones, and also all the highlights are selected. So you can see all this bright stuff here is selected, some of the bricks, these highlights, her skin, a majority of it, some of the hand, all these highlights. Now let's go back to the blue color adjustment layer. Let's make it visible. And now we are going to click the layer mask icon here. And what it does, you can see here, and I'm just going to, while pressing Alt, I'm going to click on the mask itself, and it's just going to show me the mask right now. So this is what the mask now looks like. It's basically a black and white representation of our image. But the way that a layer mask works is whatever is white or bright or close to white, it will allow this layer to go through, and whatever is black, it basically conceals. So anything that is black on this mask will not be affected by this color. So right now, so if I click Alt again on this mask, Here it is. So what it does, what this did now is apply blue color to all the highlights in bright midtones. So you can see her skin is affected, and you know, all the bright stuff. But actually, we want the opposite. We want to apply the blue tone to the shadows and the lower midtones. So what we have to do is while the layer mask is clicked, press Control I to invert this mask. And now the mask is switched. So basically, if I click on Alt again, you can see that all the shadows are white and her face is much darker. So it means that, you know, this blue color will not be applied to her skin. So I'm going to click again on the mask to make it visible. So now you can see the blue color was applied to only the shadows and darker midtones. And this is a normal mode at 30%. Of course, if I do even at 100%, you will see that only the dark areas are affected with the blues. Her skin is a little bit affected because it's not the mask was not completely black here, but it's still kind of yellowish. You know, if you look, if I, for example, want to disable this mask, or press Shift and click on it. This is how this layer looks without the mask. And now if I enable this mask, I still see something. So that's basically what Luminosity Mask does here. Let's go back to 30% and see how this is affected. So you can see our shadows now are becoming blue. If I change this layer blending mode to color, it will not apply the luminosity of this blue color. It will just apply the hue, so basically the color. So even if I make it, really 100% opacity, the photo will just become bluer, but it will not really affect the luminosity of this blue color. So you can see now, if I double click it here, and whether I make it bright or not, it just changes the color. It doesn't change the luminosity. However, if I change this to normal, see, like if I double click it now, and if I make it to bright or darker, it all beside the color, it also affects the luminosity of the shadows. Okay, so this is just one way to do it. For example, now if I wanted to apply something like maybe a yellow color, so orange color. So let me just select something here, yeah, like that, and I want to apply this one only to the highlight. So again, I'm going to delete this layer mask here. I'm going to deselect these two layer masks because I want to make sure that my RGB color actually shows me the photo. I'm going to click on it again with Control. So Control click on it. And now I have the highlights selected. I'm going to, again, to my mask. I'm going to make it visible and apply the layer mask. And I'm going to make the other one visible. And of course, 100% at normal opacity is way too much. So I'm going to maybe do it at 10. Okay, so now you can see that how this yellow affects only the highlight. So if you disable the blue one, this is basically what this layer does. If you combine it together with blue, and if I make these two layers together under group, so select them both and Control G to make them as group, before and after. Okay, so this is how it affects your photo. It's basically you apply the blue to the shadows and the kind of yellowish orange color to the highlights. The problem with this method here is that the way you apply the mask or the layer mask with the Luminosity Mask, you don't really have so much control how much of the shadows you want to apply the blues or the whatever color you want for the shadows, and you don't have so much control which highlights you want to apply the other color. Because it's just basically a Luminosity Mask at 50%. Yes, there are some more advanced ways to refine this mask, but it's much more labor intensive, and I don't think it's worth doing it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to delete those layer masks again for both of these. Oops, here it is. And now we will use the method called apply image. So I'm going to create a mask for this layer first. And now while this mask is selected, I'm going to image and apply image. And you can see that automatically it's, the image, it's kind of similar to what we created with the luminosity mask. It's really, the same kind of principle here. If I want to invert it, if I want to do for the shadows, I click the invert, and now only the shadows are selected, right? And basically, if I enable it now, it's the same effect that we had before. It's the same method, really, whether you use the luminosity mask or the apply image, that's really the same thing. If you want to just apply the blues to even deeper shadows, all you can do is just go again to image, apply image, and do it again with just with the invert method, and now it will be affected only to the deepest blues. So this is basically what happens. See, now the blues are applied more across. Now it's just to the deepest shadows. So we can even increase this luminosity, and you can see that her face is really protected at this point, but we don't want to go overboard, so maybe like a 35 again. Okay, and the same here we can apply with the with this yellow for the highlight. So we're going to create our layer mask, and now go image, and where's my apply image? Here it is, apply image. And now we don't want to do invert, but a few things that we want to make sure: the layer is merged, so basically we want to apply the whole, a representation of the whole image here, and blending is multiply, basically is going to apply over and over, the mask. So now we apply, see the yellows are applied only to the highlights. Okay, so this is so again we did the same colors, but we did this with the apply image method, which is kind of similar to luminosity mask by control clicking on the RGB channel. I'm going again to delete the layer mask, and I'll show you the third way to do it. And this is the one that I enjoy the most. It gives me the most control, and it's the most flexible way of controlling where the blue for the shadows go, and then where the yellow for the highlights goes. Okay, so we're going to be using the blend if method. In order to do it, you have to double click anywhere here on the layer. So, and then this layer style will come, layer style dialog box will come. So the most important, here what we're going to be working on is this underlying layer, and this basically the blend if method here will control which tones we want to control, and we want to reappear from below layers, and which ones we want to basically be affected by the blues. So if we want to only apply the blue to the shadows, but the highlights to be visible from the underlying layer, basically we have to take this little triangle slider and start moving it to left, and you can see more and more highlights are basically revealed. The only problem here is that because the edges are very harsh, so this really looks like crap. So in order to make those edges a little softer, we have to, while pressing Alt, click on this triangle, click it, and then it will split into two, and now you can move this guy all the way here, and you can control how much, how smooth this transition is. So for example, if you want only to apply to the blues, so let me show you. Oops. Right, so if you want to just apply these two, like here maybe, let me see. Yeah, so this actually looks good now, right? See, so this was applied only to the dark tones. Yeah, and now if you want to change this, you can always go back and adjust, these sliders to really give you control how much of this blue color you want to apply. So if you want, to deeper shadows, or you want like maybe, even like the deep, control whether the deeper shadows you don't want to apply, you can play with those sliders and control where you want it to be. So let's say this is this. If I want to change it to soft light still, I can still change it and maybe give a little bit more. So maybe at 45 and adjust those sliders now a little bit more. See now, yeah, this looks so much better. So basically now I have the blues, applied to the shadows. And for example, if, I can still apply a layer mask here. And for example, if I want to protect her skin and hair not to have any impact with this color, if I do B for brush, and let's say I do Shift 10 for changing the flow to 10%, I can just mask this area here. And then, so like her hands, for example, I don't, let's say I don't want to apply any blues, to even the dark tones here. I just want to kind of keep it intact. So you can see everything was applied except her face and hands, right? So now if I want the highlight for the yellows, if I double click on it, now I want the highlights to stay, but I want the shadows to be excluded. So I basically start sliding the shadows, press Alt here to split it. And this way, basically the feathering of the color of the mask is, much softer. So I don't want to really apply anything to, to the shadows with this yellow color. So now you can see what this did. And now I really apply only the yellow, so I can even increase now. See, like if I applied, at 100%, it only applied to the brightest areas. So I can just, and then maybe I'm gonna make it a little bit less saturated, like maybe like this. Okay, let me see how this looks. Maybe lower the opacity and then change it to soft mode. Soft mode usually is the best way to do it. It gives you the most natural feel with this kind of blending. Yeah, so maybe somewhere like this. Okay, so now we went from this to this, and it's you're not really limited to 2 colors. You can create another solid color, and let's say you want some kind of really deep green. Let's say we do deep green, and for this one we want to protect the shadows and blend it, and then we're also going to bring the highlight. So we want to apply only like to the midtones, really. Okay, and I know it still looks very bad, but if you change it to soft light and now reduce the opacity of it, okay, it kind of gives you an extra feel. So now if we do before and after, this gives you a nice a different feel to this photo. You can really experiment this with this and get the feel that you want. Okay, so now you may ask, okay, so how do I know what are some good combination of colors? Well, the two sources that I think are really worth exploring. The first one is if you go to Window Extensions and you go for the Adobe Color Themes, and this will kind of give you the icon here. This is the kind of the tool from Adobe that you can create different color sets. And for example, I have some color set here, what kind of color schemes, and this just gives you different colors that I color combination that I really enjoy. So for example, let me delete this group for now. Let's say there we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors here. Okay, so I'm going to create 5 solid colors. So okay, I'm just gonna move this here a little bit. Okay, so the first color, it's going to be this one, and you notice that when you move your mouse outside the color picker, you can choose the color, but as soon as you move on the Adobe color themes, the color picker disappears. The trick here is to press Alt while you are here, while your color picker is visible. Press Alt and then click your mouse and move around until you see this, and this will automatically select this color. So here it is. Now let's go to the next one. We're gonna press Alt, move out, click the mouse and move over and select this color. Now do this one. Again, Alt, move your mouse. Here it is. This one, I'm gonna go for this. And the last one, we're gonna move for this color. Okay. So we have these 5 different colors applied. So let's disable, make them invisible. And actually, you know what? Let's make each of them, let's say at 10% each. I'm gonna make them visible. So 10% visible, 10% visible, 10% visible. Okay. Make them invisible. Now let's go for this one. So if I double click it now, I'm going to have the highlights not visible, but I want this to apply to the shadows. So basically it's something like that. Okay. See, so this is applied to the shadows. I can maybe even increase it a little bit, maybe to 20%. Let's do the same to this color. I press Alt to split it. Here it is. Right, so this is applied like that. Maybe this is a little bit too much. So, okay. This one I want to apply to the midtones. So double click here. I'm gonna remove from the shadows and split it, and then remove from the highlights and split it as well. Okay, and also maybe lower opacity a little bit, maybe like even 5%. This one I want more in the highlights. Oops, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to double click it here. So we're gonna protect the shadows like that. Here it is. And then the last one we want also, oops, sorry. I keep forgetting. And this is going to be for the highlights as well. So I'm going to protect the shadows. Here it is. Okay, so if I put this in a group, Control G, this is what it did. Okay, so this is just a feel that, and you can save this, as an action, and you can just apply this color grading. But for example, if I want to apply this group, let's say to this photo, I have this color before, right? So this is the original color photo. If I press V and I'm gonna apply this to drag this group here it is. So this apply this color grading for me. Okay, if I want, for example, the same color grading applied to this image, it's maybe not the best one, but this will be something that you can explore. Okay, now the second tool that we find very useful in terms of the color samples, so let me disable this, is a site called moviesincolor.com. And here you have an example of various movies, and you have the whole color scheme of these movies. It's a very cool site with a lot of cool colors. Again, if you want to apply any of this color, for example, let's say that you want to apply some of the colors from the movie. This is, I believe, what movie is this? I don't remember. I think it's Emily, right? I think so, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay, I'm going to, actually first we have to make the Photoshop smaller, so I'm going to move it here so that I can drag it. So it's a little more involving here, but if I create solid color, and now see my eyedropper, color droppers here. If I press Alt, click the mouse, and move my mouse to the other window, it will select these colors from the other side. So for example, if I want the kind of pinkish here color, here it is. And I'm going to maximize Photoshop now again. So for example, if I want just the this pinkish to apply to my highlights, okay, I'm going to make it like that and reduce obviously the opacity because it doesn't look that good. And here it is. Usually the tones that you want is, you know, maybe more for the shadows. So let's see another color, and I'm going to maybe, oops, and select maybe like something darker here, like that color. Okay, maximize my Photoshop again. Now if I'm gonna control the highlights, so I'm gonna see only, I'm gonna apply only to the shadows. And those sliders allows me to see how much I really want to apply, you know, how, you know, that's the kind of the beauty of the blend diff. Here it is, and it just applied this kind of warmth to the shadows as well. So this is it. So again, you have 3 ways to do the masking of your solid color adjustment layers, either with a luminosity mask, apply image, blend diff, and then you can rotate your layer blending mode from normal to color or to soft light. And you really have endless ways to play with it and to make sure that the photo has the feel that you want. I hope this video was useful. If you learned something new, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you know when I post the new videos. And then we'll see you soon when we post more videos in our channel. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.